My uncle stole $87,500 from my dying father and laughed when I confronted him. 6 months later, he was charged with felony theft. The court ordered full restitution, garnished from his pension. My brother's tuition is secured. I never thought I'd be the guy pressing felony charges against his own uncle. But when I sat in that bank office, staring at a balance of $340 in an account that should have held $87,500, something inside me went cold. Not angry, cold. The kind of cold that makes you methodical, makes you dangerous to people who thought you'd just grieve quietly and never ask questions. My father died trusting his brother. His brother cashed in on that trust for 3 years. This is how I made him pay every cent back. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 31. I've been a paramedic in Louisville, Kentucky for 9 years. Steady shifts, long nights, the kind of work where you hold it together because someone has to. I learned that from my father. Gerald Webb worked the same USPS mail route through Shively for 28 years. Rain, ice, 100-degree August, didn't matter. He showed up. He raised me and my younger brother Devin, mostly alone. Our mother left when Devin was 4, just packed a bag on a Sunday and never came back. Dad never talked about it, never badmouthed her. He just adjusted, packed 2 lunches instead of waiting for someone else to do it. Coached Devin's Little League team on his days off, drove me to every EMT class when I was 22 and broke and borrowing his truck. And quietly, without ever making a show of it, he stacked money, a savings account at Republic Bank. Every month, something went in. He told us about it exactly once a year, usually around Thanksgiving. Same words every time. Devin's college is covered, and there'll be something left over, so neither of you boys ever has to scramble. That was his whole philosophy. Don't scramble, plan ahead, show up. Then there was Uncle Ray. Ray was Dad's younger brother, 54 years old, and lived like he was auditioning for a reality show. Drove a Cadillac Escalade, wore gold chains to church, talked constantly about investments that never seemed to produce anything except stories. The family treated him like a harmless blowhard. He'd show up to cookouts with a bottle of Woodford Reserve and opinions loud enough to hear from the driveway. Dad loved him anyway. Never said a single bad word about Ray. Not once in my entire life. When Dad got diagnosed with congestive heart failure, everything shifted. That was about 18 months before he died. He got winded walking to the mailbox. Couldn't manage stairs. The bills started piling up because he couldn't keep track of what was due and when. Ray stepped in like it was the most natural thing in the world. Let me handle the bills, big brother. You just focus on getting better. Dad signed a durable power of attorney, gave Ray full access. Nobody questioned it. Why would we? He was family. He was the only brother Dad had. And Dad was tired. The kind of tired that makes you trust people you shouldn't, because fighting takes energy you don't have left. Dad passed on a Tuesday morning in October. Sudden cardiac arrest. His heart just quit. I got the call mid-shift. I was still in my uniform, still had gloves in my pocket from a call 20 minutes earlier. I'd spent 9 years saving strangers, and I wasn't even in the room when my own father's heart stopped. The funeral was big. Dad knew everybody in Shively. The church was standing room only. I held it together because that's what I do. Devin sat next to me and didn't say a word for 3 hours straight. He was 19. He'd just gotten his acceptance letter to University of Louisville for pre-nursing. Dad had been so proud, he taped it to the refrigerator. After the service, I started handling executor duties. Dad's will was straightforward. Everything split between me and Devin, with a specific note that the Republic Bank account should fund Devin's tuition. Simple, clean. My father was an organized man. But small things kept snagging in my brain. Ray showed up to the funeral in a brand new suit, tags still sharp on the cuffs. His garage had a full workshop build-out that hadn't been there 6 months ago. He'd paid cash for a fishing boat 2 summers back and laughed about it being a good year. I filed every detail away without understanding why. A week later, I called Republic Bank to start the transfer process. Gave them the account number, my executor paperwork, my ID. The representative pulled up the account and went quiet. Not the normal pause, the kind of silence that has weight to it. "Mr. Webb, I want to make sure you're sitting down." I told her I was fine. Just give me the number. Sir, the current balance on this account is $340.12. I drove straight from work to the Republic Bank branch on Bardstown Road, still in my uniform, didn't even stop to change. I walked in and asked for a full transaction history, going back 3 years. The branch manager looked at my executor paperwork, looked at the account balance, and I could tell she already knew something was wrong. She printed 46 pages of statements and set me up in a glass-walled office near the back. I started reading. The pattern hit me on page 3, and it never stopped. Starting 14 months before Dad died, right after Ray got power of attorney, the withdrawals began. Small at first, 300 here, 500 there. Memo lines that looked reasonable if you didn't know better. Medical copay, pharmacy, home repair, plumbing. Then they grew. $2,000, $3,500, $5,000 in a single transfer labeled Cardiac Rehabilitation Facility. My father never went to cardiac rehab. I knew every claim that went through his insurance because I helped him manage it. Gerald had Medicare and a solid supplemental plan from his years at USPS. His out-of-pocket was minimal. The plumbing in that house hadn't been touched in a decade. I'd fixed the kitchen faucet myself. Every single memo line was a lie. The withdrawals got worse in Dad's final 6 months. That's when he couldn't get out of bed most days. Couldn't check a statement. Couldn't open his own mail. Ray was pulling $4,000, $6,000 at a time. The last major withdrawal was $8,200, 11 days before Dad died. While Dad was lying in that hospital bed, talking about how glad he was that Devin's future was secure. I counted the total 3 times. $87,160. Stolen by the man who held his dying brother's hand and told him not to worry about a thing. I didn't wait. I drove to Ray's house in Okolona that same evening. The Escalade was in the driveway. The fishing boat sat under a new cover on the side of the garage. I knocked hard. Ray opened the door, holding a beer, grinning like I'd come for a visit. "Marcus, come in, nephew. How you holding up?" "I went to the bank today, Ray." His grin stayed, but his eyes moved, just slightly, toward the hallway behind him, and then back. "Oh yeah? Getting the estate stuff rolling?" $340. That's what's left in Dad's account. Silence. He set his beer down on the entry table. Slow. Careful. "Your dad had a lot of expenses toward the end, Marcus. Medical stuff adds up. You know that." "I have the statements, Ray. Every withdrawal. Every fake memo line. Cardiac Rehabilitation Facility. Dad never went to cardiac rehab. You and I both know that." His whole face changed. The uncle act dropped away like a mask falling off a shelf. He stepped toward me and his voice dropped low. "You want to know the truth? Your father owed me. For every year I spent picking up his slack, covering for him, babysitting his failures. Every Thanksgiving I sat through listening to everyone praise Gerald the Saint while I got treated like garbage." He pointed at my chest. "Consider it collected." I stared at him. "You stole from a dying man, your own brother." "I took what I was owed, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it." I left without another word. Didn't yell, didn't threaten. I sat in my truck in his driveway for a full minute, with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Then I pulled out my phone and photographed every single page of those bank statements right there under his porch light. All 46 pages. I uploaded them to a cloud drive before I even turned the engine on. Then I called the one person in the family I trusted completely. My cousin Denise, Ray's own daughter. Denise Carter, 29, dental hygienist in Lexington. She picked up on the second ring. I told her everything. The balance, the statements, the memo lines. What her father said to my face. She went quiet for so long I thought the call dropped. Then she said something that changed everything. Marcus, I'm not surprised, and I have the texts to prove it. She told me Ray had been bragging to her in messages for over a year. Vague at first, then explicit. He'd sent her things like, your Uncle Gerald's account is my retirement plan. And by the time anyone checks, it'll be long spent. Denise had saved every single message. She'd been disturbed, but didn't know what to do. Didn't know who to tell. Now she knew. I'll drive down Saturday with my phone, Denise said. But Marcus, you need to know something else. He's already trying to move money out of his own accounts. Whatever you're going to do, you need to do it fast. I spent the next 72 hours building a case file with the same precision I use writing patient care reports. Every shift I document vitals, interventions, timestamps. I treated this the same way. I organized those 46 pages of bank statements into a spreadsheet. Every fraudulent withdrawal got its own row. Date, amount, fake memo line. Then I pulled out the filing cabinet Dad kept in his bedroom closet. He'd saved every Medicare explanation of benefits statement going back years. I cross-referenced each so-called medical expense against his actual claims. Not a single withdrawal matched a real bill. Not one. Denise drove down from Lexington on Saturday morning. She walked into my apartment, set her phone on the kitchen table, and said, "Take whatever you need." 17 months of text messages. Some were vague, hints, but others were devastating. The worst one was dated 4 months before Dad died. Ray had texted his own daughter. Just pulled another 5K. Old man doesn't even know what day it is anymore. Easiest money I ever made. I read that message 3 times. Then I screenshot it and kept moving. I called Joan Hadley next. She was 63, retired bookkeeper, and one of Dad's closest friends from St. Stephen Baptist Church. Joan had done Gerald's taxes for 15 years as a favor. Every April, Dad would sit in her kitchen with his receipts held together by a rubber band, making sure every penny was right. She still had copies of his returns and financial summaries going back a decade. When I told her what happened, she didn't hesitate. She said she'd reconstruct the full paper trail. Joan's work took 4 days. What she produced was devastating. A clean ledger comparing Dad's documented income and expenses against the account activity. Gerald's legitimate out-of-pocket medical costs during his entire illness totaled $4,280. Every dollar beyond that, $87,160, went to Ray. Joan printed it clean, signed it, and dated it. Then Ray started fighting back. Word got to him that I was asking questions. He launched a campaign through the family. He called my Aunt Patricia, Dad's older sister, 71 and allergic to conflict. He spun her a story about how Gerald had secretly owed him money for decades. Old loans, a car he'd co-signed in the 80s, bail money from the 90s. None of it documented anywhere. Patricia called me that evening, voice shaking, begging me to let it go for the family's sake. "Marcus, please. Your father wouldn't want this kind of ugliness." I told her I loved her. I told her I couldn't stop. Then Ray went after Devin. He showed up unannounced at Devin's dorm at U of L, pulled him aside in the lobby, told him Marcus was stirring up drama over nothing, and that Gerald had given him that money willingly. Devin called me that night in tears. He was 19 years old, still grieving, and the man who robbed our father was standing in his dormitory, telling him lies. I had to sit on the phone and explain to my little brother that every dollar Dad saved over 28 years was gone, that the college fund Dad promised every Thanksgiving didn't exist anymore. Devin didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said, "Get him, Marcus." Ray texted me 2 days later. "Drop this, or I'll drag your daddy's name through mud you can't clean up. I know things about Gerald that would break your little hero image. Your call, nephew." I didn't respond. I took the next 2 days off work and executed 3 steps. First, I filed a detailed report with Louisville Metro Police Financial Crimes Unit. I walked in with the bank statements, Jones' forensic ledger, and printed screenshots of every text message from Denise's phone. Second, I retained Vanessa Okafor, an elder abuse and estate fraud attorney my union's legal referral service recommended. Vanessa reviewed everything in one sitting and looked up at me over her glasses. Mr. Webb, this is one of the cleanest theft cases I've ever seen. The paper trail is airtight. Third, I petitioned the probate court to formally revoke Ray's power of attorney retroactively and freeze any assets traceable to the stolen funds. Joan did something else I didn't expect. She identified 3 withdrawals structured just below the $10,000 reporting threshold: $9,800, $9,900, $9,500. Vanessa flagged those immediately. Structuring. That wasn't just state level anymore. That carried possible federal implications. 2 weeks after I filed the police report, my phone rang at 6 a.m. It was Denise, whispering, "They just showed up at Dad's house with a warrant. He's being arrested right now." Ray was charged with felony theft over $10,000 and exploitation of a vulnerable adult, Class C felony in Kentucky, up to 10 years. They booked him at Louisville Metro Corrections on a Wednesday morning. He posted bail that same afternoon, but it didn't matter. His mugshot was in the family group chat before lunch. The preliminary hearing came 6 weeks later at Jefferson County Circuit Court. I wore a pressed shirt. Devin sat beside me. He'd gotten a haircut the night before and looked so much like Dad, it almost broke me right there in the courtroom. Ray's attorney tried everything. Gerald had verbally authorized the transfers. The power of attorney gave Ray broad discretion over financial decisions. This was a family misunderstanding being criminalized. A private matter dragged into public court by a grieving nephew who didn't understand the full picture. Then Vanessa stood up with Jones' ledger. She went line by line. $87,160 in withdrawals. $4,280 in legitimate expenses. She presented the Medicare records. She showed the fake memo lines next to the actual claims. And then she read Ray's text message to his own daughter aloud in open court. "Old man doesn't even know what day it is anymore. Easiest money I ever made." I watched Ray's face when those words hit the room. He looked at the table. He didn't look up again. His attorney asked for a recess. When they came back, the plea negotiation started. Ray's lawyer found me in the hallway. Vanessa stood next to me. The lawyer kept his voice low. "My client is willing to repay 50% over 5 years. He'll plead to a misdemeanor. This goes away quietly." I looked at him the way I look at a scene when I arrive on a call. Calm. Clear. Full restitution. Every dollar. Or we go to trial and I'll make sure the structuring evidence goes to the FBI. Ray took the deal 3 days later. He pled guilty to felony theft. The court ordered full restitution of $87,160, enforced through a garnishment order on his federal pension. Ray had worked 22 years in maintenance at the VA hospital before retiring early. The garnishment took 40% of every check until the debt was paid in full. 5 years of probation. Felony on his permanent record. The family split the way families do. Not clean. Aunt Patricia stopped speaking to me for 2 months. Then one afternoon a card showed up in my mailbox with her handwriting. Your father would be proud. I'm sorry I told you to let it go. 3 of Ray's longtime friends cut ties after the court records went public. His wife Linda filed for legal separation before the year was out. Denise and her father never spoke again. She told me she'd made her peace with it the moment she first read those texts. She just needed someone to act. 6 months after sentencing, a letter arrived from Ray. 3 pages. Mostly self-pity. How the felony destroyed his reputation. How the garnishment left him barely enough to cover rent. How family should forgive. The last paragraph said, I know I did wrong, but I was your daddy's brother for 54 years. That should count for something. I read it once. I didn't write back. But I didn't throw it away either. I put it in the same filing cabinet where Dad kept his receipts in a rubber band every April, making sure every penny was accounted for. It felt right. Let it sit next to the proof of who Gerald Webb actually was. Devin started at the University of Louisville that fall. Pre-nursing program. Just like Dad planned. The first restitution payments began arriving monthly, deposited into a new trust account Vanessa helped me set up in Gerald's name. I framed one of Dad's old USPS route maps and hung it in my apartment next to my paramedic certification. Joan brings flowers to Dad's grave every month and leaves a penny on the headstone. She says it's an old tradition. It means I visited. I pick up extra shifts. I keep saving. I tell Devin the same thing Dad always told us. You'll never have to scramble. People ask me if I feel guilty for sending my own uncle to court. I don't. My father spent 28 years walking the same mail route through Shively, rain or shine, putting money away, dollar by dollar, for his sons. Ray spent 3 years draining it while Dad was too sick to notice. Guilt is for people who had a choice and made the wrong one. I had a choice too. I just made the right one. Dad's account started at $340. It's growing again now. Slowly. The way he would have wanted. Honestly, and one paycheck at a time.